Good evening. The meeting of the Committee on Student Achievement and School Innovation of the Board of School Directors will please come to order. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Director Carr? Director Gokul Gandhi?
Present.
Director Leonard?
Present.
Director O'Halloran?
Here.
Chair Seamson?
Present.
We have 4 committee members present, and we also have Directors Zomber and Jackson joining the committee.
Welcome, visiting directors, to the SASE Committee. The Chair will now ask the Secretary to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. The Chair invites any members of the audience who wish to participate to do so and asks that those of us who do not wish to participate remain silent during the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This meeting is being conducted in person from the Central Services Building. In order to allow as much public access and participation as possible, this meeting is also being broadcast via live stream on the MPS website and on the MPS YouTube stream, the links to which may be found on the MPS website on the broadcast page. Before we begin tonight's meeting, we have a short announcement regarding interpretation services for the Spanish-speaking members of our audience.
Buenas tardes y bienvenidos a la Junta Escolar de las Escuelas Públicas de Milwaukee. Si desea escuchar esta reunión en español, por favor llame al 312-626-6799. Nuevamente, 312-626-6799. E introduzca el número de reunión 608-130-5362. Nuevamente, el número de reunión es 608-130-5362. Gracias.
Thank you very much. For each of our items of business, we will hold a discussion and public hearing. If you wish to speak, please fill out a speaker's slip and bring it to our board clerk, Dr. Mann. Virtual speakers are asked to remain on the platform until you are called upon. After speaking, virtual speakers may follow the rest of the meeting using the broadcast information previously mentioned. When you are called upon to speak, please state your name and spell your last name for the record. For the sake of fairness and to give everyone a chance to speak, the Chair reserves the right to limit the length of time allowed to any one speaker. Written testimony will be accepted for transmittal to the board. Send this testimony to the Office of Board Governance, P.O. Box 2181, Milwaukee, Wisconsin 53201-2181, or fax to 414-475-8071, or email it to governance@milwaukee.k12.wi.us. Just as a reminder, Robert's Rules of Order dictates that all comments should be directed to the chair of the committee. Also, any questions or requests, including those from the public, committee members, or the administration, are to be directed toward the chair, who will determine the most efficient way to address them. For the safety and for the safety of all and to ensure the good order of the meeting, harassment or intimidation tactics of any kind will not be tolerated. Anyone who engages in such harassing or intimidating words or actions will immediately be asked to cease. If such behavior continues, a recess will be called and the offending parties will be removed from the meeting. Anyone ejected from the meeting may continue to listen to the meeting or access the agenda items online. However, the individual will not be allowed to rejoin the meeting. Also, no one other than members of the board, designated staff, and those who have been invited to present or participate in items of business will be allowed on stage before, during, or after meetings of the board and its committees. Finally, for our listening audience, if you wish to access this evening's agenda items and attachments online, you may do so by visiting the meetings, agendas, and minutes page of the MPS website. Now, Madam Secretary, let's begin. Item 1.
Item number 1 is a report on the Ambitious Instruction Reading Plan. This is an informational item and no action is required.
Would the administration please present this item?
Madam Chair and members of the committee, Keith Posley, Superintendent of Schools. The item before you on this evening's agenda is a report on the ambitious instruction plan. I have with me Tanya Evans, curriculum specialist, to share on this item, as well as a team of individuals from the district, and they will be introducing themselves as they come forward. Following the presentation, we'll be more than happy to entertain any questions that you may have in regards to this item. Ms. Evans.
Chair Simpson and members of the committee, my name is Tanya Evans. I'm the District Reading Curriculum Specialist. I'd like to begin by first thanking you for this opportunity to share with you the work that we're doing around reading in the area of ambitious instruction. I'm going to allow my colleague to introduce herself. She's going to get us started, and then I'll jump in.
Good evening. Good evening, Chair Simpson and members of the committee. My name is Gabrielle Green, Early Childhood Curriculum Specialist from the Department of Curriculum and Instruction. I'll be co-presenting with Ms. Evans this evening, and I also wish to express my gratitude for the chance to speak about the Ambitious Instruction Reading Plan from the perspective of early childhood. The reading plan supports the district's 5 priorities for success, in particular, increasing academic achievement and accountability in developing our staff. It is also aligned to ambitious instruction, including the 3 levers of formative practices, explicit instruction, and engagement.
In a moment, I'm going to share the instructional design for teaching reading in the district, the structure that we expect our teachers to use. But I wanted to begin with a little research to explain why we are focusing on this structure. So studies tell us that when students are behind and they're given grade-appropriate work, they begin to close that achievement gap. Research also tells us that it's really critical to differentiate for students when we have academically diverse classrooms, and we have very academically diverse classrooms. So with that research in mind, I want to share with you our instructional design for teaching reading in the district. That instructional design is whole group, small group, whole group. What we're asking teachers to do is, in a whole group setting, teach all students, even if they're significantly below level, teach grade level skills, standards, and strategies. We need all students exposed to this. They'll have to have some support with it because if they're extremely low, it's challenging for them. But their listening comprehension is a lot higher than their reading comprehension. They may not be able to read it, but they can still understand it. So teachers may read things aloud to students or give them a smaller chunk to read, give them a graphic organizer to use, let them work with a partner. But you're providing that and asking questions, those higher level questions verbally. So you're providing that support so they're exposed to their grade level, again, skills, standards, and strategies. But then we're asking teachers to work with students in small groups as well. And this is really the heart of the reading block because now we're differentiating for students. So we're meeting students where they are, and we're helping them to climb higher. And so it may be a group of students that are below grade level that you're working with them on whatever their struggles are to help them read increasingly challenging texts. We do have some students that are above grade level, and they need to be challenged a little more. So this is a time that you can give those students something a little more challenging so that you are providing that rigor for them as well. We really want students to be engaged through all of this, but particularly during small group instruction, because what we're asking is, we're asking teachers to work with these small group of kids, and you kids work independently. So it's really important to have that engagement. As with whole group, it's really important to provide that explicit instruction because it's challenging for a lot of students. We need teachers to be really clear on, this is what you're learning today. This is what you need to do to be successful. And then finally, that last whole group, we're bringing students back together to revisit the focus of the lesson. So whatever teacher said, this is what you're learning today, and this is what you need to do to show me that you are successful with it. This is the time for that, when they bring them back together. So they're going to allow students an opportunity to share. They're going to do some type of assessment. It doesn't have to be a formative paper pencil test, but they're going to do something to gauge, did kids get it? I've seen teachers do something as simple. I was in a first grade classroom, and they were working on rhyming, and she had the kids do a thumbs up, thumbs down as she was reading a rhyming story. If it rhymes, give me a thumbs up, keep it close to your chest so no one else can see. If it doesn't rhyme, thumbs down. And I could see, just from her doing that, who was getting it and who wasn't, which a lot of them weren't getting it. And she I think it was a K-5 classroom, and she retaught right on the spot because she talked about, remember, rhyming is this. So those are the type of things that we're asking teachers to do in that whole group wrap-up. The blocks, the time frames that we have for these, for pre-K, they use the whole small whole, but literacy is integrated throughout the day. So it's not just that one reading block. K-5 through 5th grade, it's a 90-minute reading block, but again, we're asking teachers to teach strategies throughout the day. So whether you're reading science or social studies, that's also opportunities to teach reading strategies. And those content areas are actually a little more challenging than just reading a narrative text. So we really need support there as well. Middle school, in a K-8 setting, they have a 60-minute block, and with traditional middle schools, it's the class period.
Frog Street is our Frog Street is our district adopted curriculum in K3 and K4, and I'm going to highlight how it aligns to the MPS strategic plan. So Frog Street is an integrated curriculum specifically designed for young learners. And it has a daily morning message component in which foundational literacy skills are taught and then practiced in an explicit and systematic order. And then there's also a daily literacy lesson that has connected stories, vocabulary, and small group activities. These components are supporting the strategic plan's goal for increasing academic achievement through rigorous and intentional instruction. I also want to highlight that Frog Street has embedded social emotional learning, which meets the strategic plan goal for safe and inclusive classrooms. Teachers have daily rituals that meet children's needs for safety and belonging. They lead a daily greeting circle, they have a kindness tree, a safekeeper box, a safe place, and other environmental components that support social emotional skills and build a positive classroom community that make ambitious instruction possible.
Just to share a little bit about our reading curriculum for K-5 through 8th grade. Our K-5 through 5th grade, they use Into Reading. It's by Hope Mifflin Harcourt. We have the 2022 edition. For our bilingual schools, they're using the counterpart to that program, which is Riba la Lectura. They use that through 6th grade. For our 6th through 8th grade students, they are also using Hope Mifflin Harcourt. Their program is called Into Literature, again, the 2022 edition. Because Hope Mifflin didn't have the counterpart for 7th and 8th grade in Spanish, they're using Galleria. That's the program that they're using for 7th and 8th grade. This curriculum was chosen by a committee, of course, and some of the reasons that this curriculum was chosen is because the program has systematic phonics instruction as part of the program. Our K-5 through 2nd grade teachers, they do have decodable readers, and the decodable readers, for those that may not be familiar, they're books that have words that are easy to sound out after you learn particular sounds. They have just words using those sound patterns in the book. And so back in the day, there were little books like The Cat Sat on the Mat that kids could read easily. We have those for our K-5 through 2nd grade teachers. We also bought an additional school set of decodable readers because we noticed that we do, after COVID, we do have some 3rd graders that still are at the beginning reading level that struggle a little bit, and the teachers are saying, hey, decodables didn't come with our set. So we actually bought a school set that we encourage schools to have in a common area, maybe the library or some of our SSTs, our school support teachers have a large office area where teachers can check those resources out if they need those for the students. This curriculum is aligned to the Wisconsin standards, and this curriculum, it doesn't have the 3 queuing system. It's not a part of the instructional materials or the running records. And I think that's important to note because for those that follow the science of reading, one of the things that they really are against and saying that we shouldn't be teaching this way is teaching the 3 queuing system. It's a part of the our new reading legislation, Act 20, that curriculum should not include the 3 queuing system. So just to give you a little background on that, it often shows up on assessments, particularly running records, and it shows up usually as MSV. And so the M is for meaning or semantic cues, where students are using meaning cues to help them understand what they're reading. And the question is often asked, does it make sense? The S is for structural or syntactic cues that students use, and teachers ask often, does it sound right? And the V is for the visual cues or graphophonic cues, which does it look right? So to give you an example of what I mean by this, so if a student is reading a story and the line is, there are many trees in the, if it says forest, and the student says there are many trees in the woods, they're using their background knowledge. They're using context to try to figure out what that word is. They're not sounding it out because, you know, forest starts with an F, wood starts with a W, so they're using more of context. They're kind of using that, doesn't make sense. And that does make sense in that sentence, but they're not using the phonics skills to sound out that word. If students are reading something like, I swim in a pool, and they say, I swim in a pour, it doesn't make sense, but they're using visual cues because pour and pool look very similar. It's just that last letter that's different. And so oftentimes, and this was taught, you know, I have to say, like, it wasn't like teachers are just doing this. This was taught in programs. You know, I don't know if any of you remember your reading classes, but this was actually, you know, something that was taught. But you will teach students, like, okay, if you look at a word, then you want to say the first letter and then ask yourself, does it make sense? Does it look right? And so the proponents of the phonics of reading are saying, don't do that. That's not how we teach kids how to read. We want them to actually look at every letter in that word and say the sounds and not use context. Now, I will have to say students do use context sometimes to self-correct. If they say, you know, I swim in a pour, some students stop and like, that doesn't make sense. Okay, let me look at this closely. And they will self-correct. So we do want them to do that, but we don't want to teach. Like, look at the picture and see if that helps you. You know, does it sound right? That's what they're saying. Don't teach that. So I just want to share that. When I say our curriculum doesn't contain the 3 queuing system, I just wanted to explain that a little further because it's a big deal now. I also just wanted to share that we have instructional guides for pre-K through 8th grade that guides teachers on what they should be teaching. The teachers, I did a survey after the first year of this adoption to ask teachers, how's the curriculum, you know, what do you like, what do you need? And they're saying, there's so much in here, like, just tell us what to teach. And so I had a committee of teachers to come in over the summer, and what we actually looked at standards that are covered on a Wisconsin Forward, and we really wanted to highlight those particular standards. We're not saying don't teach the others, but we're saying, you know, if you have to cut time, these are the ones that are non-negotiable. Like, you have to hit these because they are going to be tested on these. And so we really narrowed it, and each year I do a survey to ask how can we structure these curriculum guides to help you. They're almost like a lesson plan now. It's so detailed, like I think it's really helpful, and I get a lot of feedback from the teachers that are using it that is very helpful. So I just wanted to share that with you as well, that we provide those to give guidance on how to use the new curriculum. Also for high school, they use the My Perspective curriculum for 9th and 10th grade. We also provide professional development around that curriculum. For our content area teachers, those that teach history, science, and so on, we do provide reading professional development for them as well. We don't expect them to be reading teachers where they're teaching phonics and things like that, but we do share with the content area teachers, if students have to read a text to access your content, you have to help them with that. And again, again, that informational text is the harder reading because students don't often have the background knowledge. It's often specialized vocabulary and so on. So we share with them before, during, and after reading strategies. Before they read something, you have to set them up for reading, help build background or activate some prior knowledge. Maybe it's even showing a video so they can hear some of the vocabulary before they actually start reading. During reading, you want them to be active readers, not word callers. So you may give them something like a note-taking strategy, or have them annotate the text where they're circling a word that they don't know, or they're putting an exclamation mark around something that resonates with them, or a question mark by something that they have a question about. And then after they read, you want them to reflect on what they've read. So it may be some type of discussion that you're doing or something like that. So that's what we share with our content area teachers. And then also last year, we started monthly training for our reading intervention teachers. We do have some high schools that have reading intervention teachers, and we wanted to just make sure that we're providing support for them, and that was very successful. They really appreciated it, and we plan to continue that again for this year. I wanted to share, too, how the ambitious instruction reflects the science of reading. We do provide ongoing training on science-based literacy instruction. We want to ensure when students, we're really, one of our foci is small group instruction. We really want teachers to stay away from round-robin reading where everyone just gets a turn to read and then you ask them a question at the end. We want them to incorporate phonics, phonemic awareness. We want them to just have a teaching point when they're working with those students, let students read the majority of that text, and make sure that they are doing some writing in response to that reading as well. We had a summer reading institute. You see a picture there. It was very well attended. We had a little over 300 teachers that attended the institute. We had one last year as well, which was virtual, and we had about 400 teachers at that institute. Curriculum training, last thing, curriculum training we provide as well. So if we have new teachers, when we have new teachers every year, and if we have teachers that change grade bands, we provide professional development around our new curriculum just to make sure that, we don't want to purchase this curriculum and then don't continue to train teachers how to use it. So every year we provide professional development on how to use the new curriculum as well as the online platform, which is called ED.
And in early childhood, we're doing that too. We just did that today, so we share that. I wanted to highlight the next few bullet points for you as well. The next one is letters training. If you have heard about the amazing gains that Mississippi made since they started letters training in 2014, and by 2019, their NAEP scores were just going amazingly well for them. And so that is credited to requiring letters training for all of the teachers in their state. So we have letters training for pre-K to third grade teachers. And this year we had 285 MPS teachers and 9 school leaders begin this training. It's an intensive training course that was designed by Dr. Louisa Moats. And if you are familiar with that name, it's because she is a literacy expert who is really at the forefront of the science of reading movement. So it was designed by Dr. Moats, and it provides pre-K to grade 3 teachers with an understanding of how the brain learns to read and an in-depth knowledge of how to teach language and literacy skills in any curriculum. And I'm currently in 2 of the cohorts, early childhood and 3E, so I'm doing the gamut, and I can say I am learning things that I did not learn in my courses on reading in college. And so it has really opened my eyes as well to things about how the brain learns to read. So it's been a pretty amazing course so far. The next part I want to highlight is our Pre-K to K Summer Institute. In July, Early Childhood hosted a 3-day institute for K3, K4, and K5 teachers and paras. It was attended by 120 teachers, and we had the first day devoted to literacy. And on that first day, we had 3 sessions, and we made sure to connect each session to the simple view of reading. The simple view of reading is based in research, and it says that in order for students to understand what they're reading, they have to first be able to recognize and decode words, so they have to be able to read the words in the text, and then that they have to have language comprehension. They have to understand what those words mean. And if they can read the words and they know what those words mean, then they can understand the text. And so that was important to us in early childhood to make sure that each of our sessions connected to that simple view of reading, and that we made that very explicit to teachers how this work was connecting to that, so that the work that they do and take back to their classrooms leads to reading proficiency. The next bullet point that I want to highlight is one that's very close to my heart. This year, Early Childhood will be launching play clinics. During the school day, small groups of teachers will come together to learn, apply, and receive immediate feedback on their use of language modeling strategies with children during their free play time. Play clinics are based on research showing that teacher-child interactions during free play have a significant positive impact on children's development of oral language and vocabulary, even more so than direct instruction alone with young children. And finally, I want to highlight on this last bullet point that we have a Science of Reading book study. Early Childhood is launching a book study on shifting the balance, 6 ways to bring the science of reading into the balanced literacy classroom. This book study has space for 200 K to second grade teachers, paras, and school leaders who will all receive a copy of this book, as well as they will attend 6 sessions led by one of our early childhood coaches who has attended the online course, a one-day intensive conference led by the authors, and she has already led some really successful PD in the district for the Central Reads Initiative last year. So we're really excited for her to lead this book study. And this book study is really important because, as it says in the title, it really helps teachers move from that balanced literacy approach in which things like the 3 cueing system were routinely taught and used to this science-informed reading approach. And so we're really excited for that book study. You can advance the slide. Thanks. And so I want to highlight now some ways that we are just continuing to make sure we have a strong core instruction. And so the first bullet point here, you see oracy. Oracy is about giving students meaningful opportunities to learn content through talk, as well as providing scaffolds and structures so that students can engage in productive academic talk. The bilingual dual language program embraces oracy as an essential part of ambitious instruction because it activates background knowledge, it encourages student engagement, it builds academic vocabulary, it provides access points into content, it makes text comprehensible, and it lays the foundation for literacy. The next bullet point is Early Childhood Environment Rating Scale, also commonly called ECHRS, so I'll refer to it as ECHRS from here, so I don't have to keep saying that long title. The ECHRS is a widely used tool to describe and give meaningful feedback on the quality of early childhood programs. It looks at 35 items in the classroom and in the school, including several items on language and literacy. The ECHRS has been around for almost 40 years, and it has been studied endlessly and revised endlessly to be current with research and recommendations from NACE, from the American Academy of Pediatrics, and a lot of leaders in this area. And in the spring, Early Childhood piloted using the ECHRS. It's a 3-hour observation, and so a trained observer goes. This is the manual for ECHRS, and we piloted it. So we did a 3-hour observation, and then we followed up with schools that needed additional support to coach them on one of the items within the ECHRS. And we saw that each school that received personalized coaching on the ECHRS improved their overall scores. And when ECHRS scores are above 3.4, we see improved outcomes for children in language and vocabulary and problem solving. And so we piloted it with 10 schools in the spring for K-4 programs, and this fall we will be providing observations and coaching support to 21 schools. And we hope to reach every school with a K-4 program by the 2026 to 27 school year. The next bullet point is on shared reading year-long cohorts. Early Childhood is also excited to be launching year-long cohorts and shared reading. We want to show teachers how to support children's background knowledge, oral language, and vocabulary through shared reading experiences with big books. And participating teachers will receive a collection of 16 books that are connected to the learning themes in Frog Street, and these are going to be available in English and in Spanish, so we can support all of those classrooms. And we will provide ongoing training with modeling of lessons and coaching support throughout the year. And we are basing that on work by Tim Shanahan, who's also a leading expert in the science of reading movement. And the final bullet point that I will be talking about this evening is Lexia Core 5. Lexia Core 5 is a Tier 1 comprehensive technology-based literacy program, and it follows an adaptive model. So that means that as students work through content, it's adapting to how they're responding. It's getting that immediate feedback and either providing more enrichment or providing corrective activities to help them fill in those learning gaps that it is identifying. It has an explicit, systematic, and personalized learning approach in 6 areas of reading: phonological awareness, phonics, structural analysis, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. The program targets skill gaps as they emerge, so extending learning for students who are advanced or accelerating learning for students who are struggling. And it also provides suggestions for teachers on individual and small group instruction. And so far, it has been implemented in 10 schools with pre-K and K students, and we have seen positive results for students who use the program with fidelity.
And just a couple other items. We piloted a program called Amira. It's a virtual online tutor. We also provide in-depth small group instruction training, and one of our district teachers, she's going to talk more about that in a moment. And of course, we have our district literacy coaches that help support this work. They go out to schools and support teachers and school support teachers with this work. We want to marry 2 things. We want high-quality reading instruction, but we also want to promote a culture of reading. We want our students reading more because reading is one of those things that gets better with practice. And so just some of the things that we've done to promote a culture of reading. I'm really proud of, we have 5 Project Lit chapters that were started last school year. Project Lit is a national book club for middle school and high school students. We partner with the Milwaukee Public Library. We meet with them monthly. And work together just how we can promote reading in the district. They actually participated in our Summer Reading Institute with us as well. We have a monthly book list that we publish. It's called NPS Reads. If you all have not checked that out, please write this down now. NPS Reads, Google that. It's the first hit that comes up. But we put out that monthly book list every month. I'm really proud of it. We have books for K-5 through 12th grade, very multicultural. We want the books that we share to reflect the students that we serve. And there is an opportunity for teachers to suggest titles, to print a PDF of the book list. I've even received emails from other districts saying that because it's public, that's saying they really like the book list and asked me if I can make sure Milwaukee Public Library has all the books because they're trying to check them out. And we do make sure, I work with our district librarian, she makes sure that we have those books in Sora, our online district library. So if teachers don't have these physical books in their classroom, they can get them from our electronic library. We also had professional development and provided, this was in conjunction with Dr. Melanie Stewart. She received funds to purchase culturally responsive libraries for our CSI schools and professional development all summer long around those libraries. And then professional development in building a culture of reading is something I did for early start schools. And I actually have a presentation tomorrow. So if anybody wants to jump in that presentation, you're welcome to do that. At this time, we do want teachers to share with you. We've shared what we're doing at the district level, but we also want teachers to tell you like how this is impacting them. So we've invited a few teachers to share briefly with you what they've been working on around the ambitious instruction plan and how some of the training and practices that we've shared has impacted them in the classroom. So we're going to start with Ms. Lacking. I'll let you introduce yourself.
Chairman Stevenson and members of the committee, good evening. My name is Monifa Lacking. I am a third grade teacher at Richard Kluge Elementary School, and I've participated in both of the Summer Reading Institutes, and this past school year I was involved in the small group reading instruction cohort. It offered me an optimal learning opportunity and experience to become a more effective teacher of reading for my students. This training was the best training I've had since I have become a teacher. In college, you know, they just give you the basics, but this was very comprehensive, and I really appreciate that opportunity to participate. The training taught me how to implement the whole, small, whole instructional design, as well as plan for and implement the specific small group reading instruction successfully by teaching the characteristics of the reading stages and strategies to address those stages of those readers, and then also take the necessary steps to move them forward. We are also given an opportunity to analyze and assess the data to form the small groups. And actually they're fluid so they can move, you know, as students make reading progress, as well as target those specific reading skills for those individual students. There was modeling that took place on how to plan and implement for specifically the small reading group, as well as we were given an opportunity to work with MPS students and practice and receive immediate feedback. So we could at least know what we needed to address when we were implementing it with our own classroom students. And so we would get a better result, which was awesome. We were provided engaging and rigorous small group activities that we could use with the reading stations and materials, resources. I have a brand new library for independent reading this year. Every book is new, and I really appreciate that. But that was attending those, the professional development to be able to use them with the small group reading instruction. Also, the reading pacing guide. The reading pacing guide is very detailed. It is a tool that I can just keep on my computer. All of the HMH materials for the whole, small, whole lessons and activities are hyperlinked right there. So I don't have to look at the book. I can engage my students and have more turn-in talks and walk around and facilitate and listen to what they're saying in that 20-minute session as they learn. We are going over phonics. We're going over a comprehension strategy, and then we can move quickly right into the small group reading instruction and the reading station activities. It also provided additional resources at the very end of the pacing guide, where we had additional station activities as well as resources that we could print up and suggestions to use for future lessons. And I just want to say, essentially, the training was very valuable. It gave me a more in-depth knowledge of the young readers I serve, how to use the data to actually group the students effectively so I know what skills to address, but also plan and implement lessons that are intentional but meaningful, so they do make reading progress, and I can see it and they can see it. So we've celebrated a lot the past school year. Many students moved, and our words were, "Do you want to level up?" And they would be like, "Yes, I want to level up." And when they leveled up, you could just see the joy of maybe a student who really struggled to read, where they could actually read. They could actually attempt to read the Tier 1 HMH text, even though they might have struggled. However, in the past, they wouldn't even look at it. I can't read, but they would try. And so that this experience, this Reading Institute, all of the reading training has been very valuable. I have grown as a teacher in all subjects because literacy is the foundation, and it has made my job as a teacher very joyous to see that the work that I have been trying to do has been very impactful to the students, and we celebrated a lot the past year. So thank you for your time.
Chairman Simpson, members of the committee, I am Grisel Reyes, first grade bilingual teacher at Greenfield Bilingual. Chief Jennifer Mims Howell observed a bilingual program classroom in action at Greenfield School. She observed an integrated science and literacy lesson in Spanish from Earth unit. In my bilingual classroom, I used the biliteracy unit framework, and it's very explained. They have it very detailed for us to follow, so it's very useful for us when we're teaching. It's the plan that's provided by the Department of Bilingual Multicultural Educational, because they apply a dual language lens to our district adopted curriculum. As we focus on building background knowledge and developing vocabulary, I use the biliteracy unit's oracy paragraph presentation to develop oral language. The presentation has key vocabulary supported by an image and used in context to help students with meaning making as they deepen their connections to the words. Throughout the presentation, we also connect physical movements and gestures, also known as TPR, total physical response, as an additional way for students to develop their understanding. We revisit the oracy paragraph every day for the first few days, because they repeated because repeated exposure and practice helps students internalize the vocabulary and concepts. A focus of explicit instruction with ambition instruction is to provide students with multiple pathways to show what they know and understand, verbally, written, or non-linguistic representation. This was applied to our vocabulary focus, and Book Creator was used, where students can insert an image, they can record their voice as they explain the word, write an explanation or definition, or use the word in context. Throughout the course of the unit, students are encouraged to go back to their work, adding more detail as they continue to learn. Additionally, a video was used as a scaffold to support comprehension of Earth systems. After the video, students engage in a modified version of the strategy called Language Experience Approach. The video served as a shared experience that students' pairs could talk about after writing a key idea from the video or on a Post-it note. After sharing and discussing, the pair meet up with another pair to create a shared summary of the key points of the video. In this way, students' oracy is leveraged to support their writing about the content. This snippet is a glance of how we support the linguistic and academic development of language learners. We know these research-based practices, if implemented with fidelity, will yield positive outcomes for students.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Janet Budney. I am an early childhood program support teacher. I work for the Department of Specialized Services with another colleague of mine. There are two of us in the district. We work to support the early childhood special education teachers who work with 3, 4, and 5-year-old students. I also, as I'm going to talk a little bit about, connected to what Ms. Green shared, am a participant in the LETTERS professional development that is taking place for our district. And I also see it as super connected into the work that I do to support teachers as they are making supports and adaptions to try to help our students with special needs to participate in the general education curriculum. Excuse me, allergies. So as you may or may not be aware, Letters started last spring. It was promoted very well, and I can say that for our special education teachers, we personally invited them to join into that cohort. It definitely gives a background knowledge and a depth of knowledge to teachers about reading that supports their specially designed instruction and how they can provide opportunities for our students with special needs to access, engage, and make progress in the general curriculum, hopefully accelerating them and having them to have positive experiences in their general education classroom as much as possible, which is what we're working toward, more inclusive environments throughout their whole day, especially with our littlest people. The Letters training is not a curriculum, as you've already heard. It is really an in-depth training on foundational literacy skills. How do you really connect and look at the most current brain research to see how children learn to read? And when you notice pieces that might be missing, how do you work with them so that they can get enough practice and enough opportunity to work through those skills so that they can master them? Which is very, very important in the whole world of reading, but most important with our youngest learners so that they are not seeing the gap widen, but seeing a reduction in that gap and really successful and a love of school and a love of, like Tanya shared, we want our children to love reading, like let them read as much as possible, because that is how we can change so many different things. They can have so many opportunities that they may not always have. Like I can't fly tomorrow to China, but I can sure learn about China by reading about it or any other thing, right? So it did begin last spring. We are currently in the middle of our second unit. The heat days made it where we did not finish unit 2, but we'll be making that up very shortly. There are 8 units that take place for the 3E. There are several different cohorts that are taking place. In those 8 units, teachers read for 8 different sections, so there's 8 different pieces that you read. There's also an online component that teachers participate in. In that online component, there is an assessment at the end of each one where some of them are a little difficult, and we have to have the opportunity, if it is needed, to be able to take it twice, and with the goal being to be above 85% accuracy. So really, the curriculum is nicely laid out to make sure that even though it is virtual and online, that you have the opportunity to deepen your knowledge and really make sure you know what you're learning. There is also, besides the online component, for each session, 2 3-hour synchronous opportunities for professional development. So teachers read about each section, participate in an asynchronous professional learning, and then a synchronous 3-hour session twice. So it's a very dedicated, large amount of work. There is also a midterm, I'm going to call it an exam, a midterm assessment after the 4th unit, and a final at after the 8th unit. So it takes a great deal of dedication to stick to it. I can tell you that literacy is the thing that I love the most, and so I am thoroughly enjoying it. I love making sounds in the mirror and teaching that to other people. It's a lot of fun. It connects to my work in that I work with the early childhood regular education side of the house to develop professional development. Those that were held today, we helped participate in, and we are developing other pieces. We also offer through the early childhood special education side of the house, we're going to offer it twice, literacy cohorts as well, which focus on teachers being able to provide specially designed instruction for their students, to be able to gather formative assessment, which is really key in that piece, right? Making sure that I'm keeping track of are we being successful with those students? And then how to connect that all into their IEP goals and hopefully accelerating that toward being the most successful that they can be. We also look at and work very carefully on providing those supports and adaptions, because we strongly believe that the vast majority of our services, of course, along with those decisions made by the IEP teams, can be provided inside of the general education classroom, with us going into the classroom and working alongside and in collaboration with the general education students and their teachers.
We're just going to wrap up with just sharing a few things, ways that we're trying to take ambitious instruction beyond the classroom. We really try to promote summer reading because, as you all know, if our students aren't reading over the summer, they lose some of the gains that they made during the school year. So a few things that we did this summer was the Passport to Summer Reading. I was just so excited about that. We just created little passports, and it was different events around the city and different businesses that students went to that business or event. They were able to get a book, get their passport stamped, and we encouraged them to go to the next event. Our communications department was wonderful. They do that Friday family newsletter, and they had reading tips all summer long in the family Friday newsletter from different ideas that I shared with them, so I really appreciate them doing that. We had an MPS Read special edition where we highlighted events around the city that families may go to, like Bastille Days, the fireworks, things like that, and we paired a book. Like if you're going to this event, Jazz in the Park, read this book. And I just really love that special edition. We tried to highlight like free events, so we had a few paid events on there as well, but we really try to highlight those free events. We also, this year, our department, we created a summer reading flyer with options for parents for the summer. Everybody can't go to summer school. We don't have spots for everyone. Everyone doesn't have transportation. But you know what? We have virtual tutoring. And so we had links on there. We had QR codes where you can just scan and sign up. Seesaw, a virtual platform that parents can work with their kids with at home. We had summer reading packs from Scholastics where you got books and a little activity journal. For our older students, there are free audio books that are given away. We had links to that site. And of course, the Milwaukee Public Library Summer Reading Challenge. And just a few things that we have coming up this year, parent workshops. We really want to get all stakeholders involved with helping to improve reading. And so we want to do some family workshops. I'm going to be working with Daryl Hall. We're going to be working with some of his parent coordinators. We're looking for parent volunteers in the classroom. One of the things that teachers shared in their surveys is I need an extra set of hands in the room. You know, my para is not always available, or I don't have a para. So we're going to try to get some parent volunteers and give them a little training, not just put them in there, but kind of, you know, set them up for success. We're looking to do a read-in this year. We've done these before COVID, where we would invite people from the communities to come to school and read to children. So be looking for invitations. I hope you all will come to our read-in. And then another innovative idea, just putting together some reading motivation idea videos, like a quick clip, like maybe 60 seconds, 90 seconds of here's an idea to motivate your kids to read. A teacher a couple of years ago, a first grade teacher shared, she does Flashlight Fridays, where she lets the kids turn off the lights, and she gave them little flashlights, and they get to sit under their desk or wherever and read by flashlight. How fun, you know, so just sharing little tips like that to get kids motivated to reading. We want kids to see reading as something enjoyable, not a means to an end. Like I have to read to complete this worksheet, or I have to read to pass this test. We want them to see it as something enjoyable. And finally, for this summer coming up, one of our ideas, one of our instructional coaches, Ms. Hess, she gave me this idea, and I'm like, I love it. What are the ideas? And she was like, I don't know, but we'll figure it out. We're going to try to do some road trip reading activities. So if you're going on a road trip with your family, we're going to try to come up with some activities you can do in the car to promote literacy. So be looking for that. We're going to come up with something. So that's it for us. Thank you so much. And if you have questions, please let us know.
Thank you very much for that presentation. You are you're speaking to my heart. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? Yes, okay. Yes, Director O'Halloran.
Thank you. For the letters training, I think you said there were something like 239 or 250 teachers that were in the training and 9 building leaders. Is there plans to onboard like additional cohorts, or is that like this is the group and we're going to stick with this? Just kind of wondering what the next steps are for that.
Administration?
Chair Simpson, members of the committee, yes, we would like to expand. We're going to need a little money to do that. So with the new legislation, with the Wisconsin Act 20, the letters is actually one of the trainings that they are supporting. And so I'm hoping that there will be some funding available so that we will be able to add more cohorts.
That'd be nice. Any follow-up, Director O'Halloran? Nope. Other committee members? Director Gokul Gandhi.
Thank you for that presentation. So I just wanted to clarify, and I think you said it. So, there's been a lot of conversation around the science of reading, what's correct. We've seen a lot of news articles. And so what it sounds like to me is that we're taking sort of a multi-tiered approach, that we're not really doing just one thing, but we are coming at the process of reading through a variety of avenues. So I just wanted to have you confirm or deny or correct the record, just for our listening audience, so they can know, where MPS stands on that issue.
Yes, Chair Simpson and members of the committee, we've always worked to align the work that we do around research. So we never take the stance of, well, let's do this. This is what I did in my classroom. We actually anchor our work in research. And so we've always been, I'll say in alignment with the science of reading, in the sense that we've done what we felt was best and what was taught. Some of the shifts with the queuing system, that's a shift, because again, I was taught that in my graduate program and my master's program to become a reading specialist. And so it's a shift, but I get it. And so we are making those, we're making adjustments where we need to, but one of the main focus, and this is aligned with the science of reading, we have to provide small group instruction. We have to differentiate. There's just too many levels in these classrooms to not do that. We do need teachers to have a structured approach to what they're doing in small groups. We do not want just round robin reading and asking questions at the end. You have to teach. You have to you have to know what these kids need to move them forward. You have to know how to address that, and you have to constantly assess, are they getting it? And if not, what do I need to do differently? So we do want to give multiple approaches to that, but everything we do, we want it to be in alignment with the science of saying this is what you need to do to teach students to read.
Follow-up, Director Gokul-Gandhi?
Yeah, so with the classrooms that aren't, the electing into letters training or something else, what's the professional development? How many minutes of professional development is provided around reading? Because it sounds like you're doing a few different things to bring educators into the forefront of what science says about reading and how we're implementing that. And so I'm just curious to know, how are we what's the plan to bring all educators along? I know you said something about 2026 being sort of that date, but can you talk a little bit about the implementation and socialization plan?
Administration?
Chair Simpson, members of the committee. So we provide professional development around reading every month. So we have our teacher institutes. At every teacher institute, there is something reading is offered. We don't have required professional development, so teachers have the option to come or not come, but it's provided every month. Several sessions, because we try to cover different grade bands.
Chair Simpson and Director Gokul-Gandhi, I'd like to add a little to Ms. Evans' comment. I heard a question about 2026, and I think that might have been referring to our goal with the ECHRS. And I just want to clarify that early childhood has a goal of giving an ECHRS observation and detailed feedback and possibly coaching support if needed to every school with a K-4 program in the district by 2026 to 27 school year. And I'd also like to echo what Ms. Evans is saying about our PD. We make every intention with our PD to, at least in early childhood, to explicitly align it to the science of reading and to make that explicit for teachers, to say this is what the research is. This is, something that maybe you didn't get in your teacher training whenever you completed that. But this is what it is. This is the simple view of reading. This is Scarborough's reading rope. These are the things that you might be hearing about or starting to hear about, even if you're not in letters training. I want teachers, when they attend PD, whether it's on literacy or it's on play or anything, to connect it back to literacy and the science of reading and to make that really explicit for them. And so that's been a goal, and each of our PD this week for back to school for early start, and now this week for traditional start, we are making those connections really explicit. And we're also thinking about, when we develop our PD plan, whether our goals are supporting that. So with our play clinics, those are aligned to language comprehension, and we have gone back to make sure that the research supports it, and especially the research, looking for research that is current and is explicitly tied to things that are important in the science of reading of movement, like the simple view of reading in Scarborough's reading rope. And the same with the shared reading cohort. That was something that I wasn't so sure about originally. Shared reading kind of comes from a balanced literacy framework. And we did some research and digging to see, is this something that still has value? Should we be throwing out our big books? And what we found is, as I mentioned, Tim Shanahan, he's one of those literacy experts, along with Dr. Louisa Motes in the science of reading movement. And he talks about, don't throw out your big books. There is value in those books. There is value in having that background knowledge built, the vocabulary, the language comprehension. And I think that is something that we are really trying to emphasize in early childhood, because that is such an important component that we can build through teachers' interactions with children in the early childhood classroom. Thank you.
Any follow-up?
I just have 2 more questions. So we use third grade reading as a really big benchmark. I feel like Education Week, I see that every issue, right? And so tell me a little bit about leading up to that third grade reading benchmark. How are we preparing? And then once we have that third grade reading benchmark, how are you stratifying the strategies if a child isn't or is on track to achieve that?
Administration.
And is that benchmark silly and it's just been sort of hyped up, That's also a question, because sometimes that, the train gets away from us and we just sort of read things and then we don't do the research to make sure that it's actually a benchmark that we should be looking for.
Chair Simpson, members of the committee. No, I can't say it's really hyped up. Things kind of change. So when you are in pre-K through about 2nd or 3rd grade, there's a lot of emphasis on teaching reading. So you're doing a lot of phonics instruction, a lot of the skills work of teaching reading. As the older you get or the higher the grade, there's less phonics and things like that. So it's more, you hear people say, from pre-K to 2nd grade, you learn to read, and then 3rd grade and up, you read to learn. And so there's some truth to that. And so we really need our students to get that strong start, because when they don't, it gets harder, not only for the students, but for the teachers. When I taught 5th grade, there wasn't a lot of phonics in that 5th grade book because they're assuming kids have that, at that point. And so the higher you get, the less there is in your text to support you. And so what we're really trying to do is to ensure that students get a strong start. We have with our new reading curriculum, it is aligned to the standards. It has that sequential phonics. We do want people following that program. But with the training that we've been doing around small group instruction, we're looking at each stage of reading. And what we're trying to do is support teachers, so no matter what stage your student is in, you know how to address it. Because right now, again, the older the students, the more challenging. When I taught 5th grade, I'm going to speak from my own experience, when my kids were struggling with phonics, I didn't really know how to address that, and there was not a lot in my book to help me. So what we're trying to do at all grade levels is make sure teachers understand these stages of reading and the descriptors of a student. Okay, if they don't know any letters or any sounds, they're at that pre-alphabetic stage. This is how you address their needs. So we're just trying to make sure they get an understanding of the stages and know how to address the needs of their students no matter what grade level. So I'm not sure if that answered your question, but okay. And we've been including our paraprofessionals in our training, because they are becoming our teachers and they are supporting these classrooms. And so we realize they're one of our stakeholders as well. And so they're always invited to this reading training because we need them to be strong at what they're doing. It's challenging to get everything you need in your college program. So I feel like it's up to us as a district to continue to support our teachers in the area of reading, because it's a complex process to teach reading.
Dr. Gokul Gandhi.
And then my last question has 2 parts. So one, how are you ensuring that this instruction is being implemented with fidelity in the classroom? And second, I'm less interested in long-term, we know what we would like to see the needle move on, but how are you categorizing immediate and short and middle term gains? What are you doing to calculate that, and how Do we know? And I'm really curious, and I'm hoping for the SASE committee, we can have mid-year and end-of-the-year letters updates specifically to see what movement is happening in the classrooms because of what success there was in Mississippi. You know, I'd like to really understand numbers-wise if that success is being reflected in our classrooms.
Administration.
Chair Simpson, members of the committee. So in addition to the walkthrough tools that our leaders have that look for us in the classroom, our department has developed a walkthrough tool based on our goals. So what we're trying to do is get teachers to follow that whole group, small group, whole group structure. That's really been our focus. We want to support teachers in what to do in small group instruction. Again, that's the heart of our reading block, but we can't help you if you're not even pulling small groups. And so one of the things that we're looking for is that structure for the professional development that we provided for Early Start and today for our traditional start schools. We shared with them what's called the Smart Start Guide to help them slowly roll out, begin on this process of developing or working with small groups. It's not something you can do like the first or second week of school because there are a lot of prerequisites that have to happen first. And so one of the things, you have to have routines and procedures in place. If you don't, it gets really chaotic and then teachers shut down like, this doesn't work, I can't do it with my kids. You also have to build a sense of community in the classroom because again, you're saying, let me work with these kids and you guys work on your own. And so you want students to be able to get along, to know how to troubleshoot, to know how to support and help each other while you're working with a small group. So one of the things that we're doing is we, in our department, we all had to make goals of what we're trying to do. And what we're trying to do, one of our goals is to increase the amount of teachers that are doing whole, small, whole. We still have a lot of teachers that are teaching whole group the entire time, and they are just missing kids. So that's part of our goal. We're going to be monitoring with our walkthrough tool, and we've asked our leaders to help us as well. What we want to do is find out if there's a barrier for you, what is your barrier so we can help you overcome it? So last year, I did send out a survey. I'm always sending out surveys. I'm always trying to hear from teachers like, what do you need? You know, how can I support you and get this done? So a few of the barriers that teachers shared with us was, I need an extra set of hands in the classroom. And so we're trying to work on, at first I was thinking, I don't know how I'm gonna do that, I can't hire people. But then, you know, I'm gonna work with our volunteer department to try to get some volunteers to help in the classroom. But also when you have those routines and procedures in place, it makes things a little more smoother too. So sometimes you don't always have to have that extra set of hands, but it is helpful. Another concern that they had was, you know, we need decodables. They didn't come in third grade. We only have them through second grade, or even some of the level texts that we have are too challenging for my students. I need different books. So we ordered a set for all the schools, a school set, where put this in a common area where teachers can check this out. They don't have to bother their colleagues. Some teachers don't want to share because they're like, you're going to lose my stuff or your kids are going to, you know, mess up. And so we have a common set where they can check out. We shared that. Some teachers were concerned about behavior issues. Our work with our team, Kim Marath, she does the comp training, and we provided comp training this summer. I need more support on small group instruction. We, you know, did the Summer Institute, and we had a space for 400. We actually have 426 people registered. We had a little over 300 that actually showed up. You know, everybody doesn't always show up. But, you know, so we're trying to constantly ask, what are your barriers? And when they let us know, then we try to do what we can at the district level to alleviate those barriers. But we've also asked our school leaders too, if you have, first of all, set the expectation that this is what we do here. We're doing whole, small, whole. We have to differentiate for these children. And if they're not doing it, please ask teachers, what are your barriers? Not in a punitive way, but how can I support you? Because we're doing it. You know, I need you to do this. So what can I do to support you to get this done? And whatever you need from the district team, you know, I'll send our, I come out all the time. Miss Lacking, I worked in her classroom, just trying to get my feet wet with doing this small group, what we're asking them to do. That's not something I did. I didn't do it that way in my classroom. And so I don't like to ask teachers to do anything that I'm not willing to try or that I can't do. And so I've been asking teachers, you know, can I come and take a small group? They're like, how many groups you want? And you can yes, you can. And just to try to get that experience. So again, I hope I answered your question. Just trying to put out the expectation, this is what we're doing, and try to find out if people aren't doing it, what are their barriers, and then help them alleviate those barriers. And just doing those checks, just doing those walks to find out if it's happening, and if it's not, how can we support you to make this happen?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, one of the things that we have made sure that we were able to do is to structure all of the professional development opportunities that happen to be consistent with our SSTs. We do a one for our principals that they go over the same materials. We do the same thing for our assistant principals and special education supervisors. So this is to help with the look-fors, so that they know what they're looking for. They have been exposed to the material, and they're also doing those learning walks to make sure that this is happening with fidelity in the classroom. They will know when a teacher needs some additional support. They can call the Office of Academics to get that support and have individuals to come out to support them along the way, or do some kind of professional development activity with their staff during their staff meetings.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Chair Simpson and Director Gokul-Gandhi and members of the committee, if I could also add, just from the perspective of early childhood, related to some of the things that I shared. I thank you for your question. I think it's a really important one about how we're tracking our impact. And in our Department of Curriculum and Instruction, we're calling this our year of impact. So we are making sure that we are collecting data on what our PD plans, our plans for teachers, how are we going to measure the impact for not only teachers, but for students. And so just to share for the 3 goals that we have in early childhood, one of them is the play clinics, and wanting to make sure that teachers are using their interactions with children during free play to impact oral language and vocabulary. And so one of the ways we're doing that is after teachers attend a play clinic in which they're receiving, it's a very immediate feedback loop. So they're going to be in classrooms watching us model these after they've learned about these strategies, and then within a half hour going into another K4 or K3 classroom and trying it themselves and getting immediate feedback on how they're doing. So it's a really short feedback loop and designed intentionally to help them put it immediately into practice. But after they attend a play clinic, we're going to make sure to follow up with them monthly to come by their classroom, or more frequently as requested, but certainly we will be coming by, knocking on those doors, getting in classrooms, seeing how they're using those strategies. But most importantly, for the student side, we are going to be collecting data and comparing it with Brigance. Brigance has 2 measures for oral language and language development that are collected at the beginning of the year, and we're going to make sure to collect data from the classrooms of teachers who have participated in play clinics to see, was there an impact on if they use those strategies consistently. When we observed it on our walkthroughs after the play clinics, was there an impact on students' oral language development compared to classrooms where teachers did not attend the play clinics or did not end up using the strategies? So that's one way that we are tracking the impact. We also have measures like that for our other goals with Eckers, and also conscious discipline, which is the social emotional component embedded in Frog Street. So that's one update that I wanted to share. And then also just in our presentation today with teachers, we were sharing, even though the reading readiness tool that the state will be determining hasn't been selected yet, we are recommending diagnostics and being very intentional about the diagnostics we choose, that they are aligned to science-informed reading instruction and practices. And so we're making sure that what we're recommending, they're collecting data on phonemic awareness and phonological awareness for the 3, 4, and 5-year-olds. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Gokul-Gandhi?
Yeah, I just hope that we can see some of that, not like at the end of the year, but maybe as you're collecting that data, you're having those play clinics, bring that back to the committee. That's like what we'd like to hear about and sort of understand what is and isn't working. So I'm just hoping that we can make a note for that for future SASE committee meetings. But thank you for all the work you all are doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Administration, is that possible to bring back a sort of like a mid-year review of how things are going and then an end-of-the-year report?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, the administration would be more than happy to bring that back.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Director Leonard.
Very good questions. Very good. So I don't want to speak for Director Simpson, but both of us have used that process. the mini lesson in front, which is really, to me, a very, very carefully timed amount of information that goes out. And then it really comes down to the grouping. So I would agree with, I believe it was Ms. Lacking, the grouping is essential. I had the opportunity to work with second and third graders the last couple of years, and I would say that the teacher that we worked together on the grouping made such a difference in how effective I could be with my special ed students and others that were on that borderline. So I just want to comment that I've had the experiences. I'm curious, and you may not have this answer, are there any universities that are doing this right now so that we know that we have teachers coming in that already should have this background so that we're not burdened with this on our own? I guess that's my question.
Administration.
Chair Simpson and members of the committee, so when you say doing this,
I'm looking at the letters and the processes that some of the processes you've been talking about. I'm just curious because I know when I went through the university system, I'll be honest with you, I came in and after 1 year I went, whatever. I'm sorry, I felt like it was sort of a waste. There were some things I got from it that were very good. But let's be honest, I spent a lot of money and time to be prepared to work with our students, and a lot of times it was so basic, especially when it came to reading instruction, that I was like, I had to start my own system to make things work, and that's why I was very frustrated. So I'm bringing that up. That do you know if anybody is doing things at university levels that you could say, oh yeah, they're doing this program here, or they're coming out and doing a great program with bringing teachers in with some kind of skill sets that we could really utilize at MPS.
Administration.
Chair Simpson and members of the committee, so there is some research that shows that there has been a growth. So the National Reading Panel came up with a big five. They're saying, these are the things that we need to teach to improve reading instruction. So we know it's phonemic awareness, phonics, vocabulary, comprehension, and fluency. And so there's been studies looking at universities to see originally, and I want to say NCTQ was the one that did the study. They're looking at the quality of university programs. And so originally when they did the first study, there were a lot of programs that weren't teaching those 5 areas or not spending enough time teaching those 5 areas. So there has been improvement over the years. And I'll have to find that study, but they actually list the universities that are really strong in that particular area. So yes, there is some work around there. So as the science of reading is coming more into the forefront, things are changing. There's also some studies too that speak to teachers need more time with practice, like the student teaching portion of it, and just getting some hands-on experience with working with students, and just getting more of the reading courses, because oftentimes you get like 1 or 2, maybe 3 if you're lucky, methods courses, and it just really is not enough to prepare teachers for the reality of what's going to hit them when they're in the classroom. And so there are studies still saying that we need more of courses and more hands-on practice, but there is some improvement of universities making sure that they're spending more time with the Big Five.
Director Leonard.
And then also, I don't know about the rest of you, but I would love to see the letters in action. I would like to actually see it happening. That's how I learn. I do it by doing, and I really, so if you have any time you want to invite any of us to classrooms, et cetera, to see that going on, I would love to see that. And then there's just one other question I have. How well attended are your parent workshops at this point in time, or is this something that's more in the works?
Administration.
Chair Simpson, members of the committee, it's something that's in the works. We did have last year, was it last year? I think it was last year. I did a couple of workshops for parents, and we had about 40 parents, but at the district, we did it at the district level, so I was happy they came, but we have so many parents, I'm like, And so I think more has to be done at the school level. I think if we do it at the school level, we'll get more parents, but I did want to offer parents something. And so I want to take a different approach this year and try to get more of the parent coordinators involved so that I can share some strategies with them so they can each host something at their school, and I think we'll get more parents involved.
Thank you.
Yes, Director Jackson.
And Director Leonard touched on it, it was the last question, was dealing with the parents, their feedback and their involvement so that they feel included with their child's learning process. How do we measure or look like? I know that you said now you will get the parent coordinators involved. I mean, it's essential that we do, but just having their, once again, being a parent, a son who went to MPS as well, there's a lot of things I didn't know. A lot of decisions were made on my child's behalf without my input, so parents definitely need to be more involved in the process. So just that we talk about inclusivity, that needs to happen more. If I can help to be a vehicle of change in any capacity in that manner, I am definitely that person to do that, but parents definitely need to be more involved.
Right. Yeah, I just wanted to say that thank you so much for taking the time to really share this reading overview with us, and the early childhood focus was wonderful. Systematic phonics instruction is important. It's been important all along, but definitely it's receiving a lot of attention right now. But I was also really grateful to hear that we are acknowledging that to be a well-rounded reader, there are a lot of things that need to come into place. So I heard you mention, classroom libraries and the importance of that, writing response and the importance of writing that plays, oral language through our play clinics and other resources like shared reading, read-alouds to really get at that comprehension piece, which is critical. Building that culture of reading, teaching those comprehension strategies, because really our goal in the end is to create, people who are readers and thinkers and look for that deep understanding and joy that we find when as we grow as readers, which we really continue throughout all of our lives. So thank you very much for that overview. And Madam Secretary, I know we have one public speaker, so could I please have Quentin Kluban come to the mic, please? And I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name.
Yep, there we go. Hey everybody and teachers, hope you start well. A lot of people bash Milwaukee Public Schools to make their own causes or districts look better, even if they don't know a lot about it. A lot of people bash Milwaukee Public Schools because they go here and do know a lot about it, but they think that MPS can't do anything right. Neither of those groups is here today. My voice is echoing because it's empty. When Milwaukee Public Schools is talking about an excellent decision that they made on behalf of kids, we should note that the next time they attack. The work that could turn around MPS is happening when no one is watching. Moving to a solely phonics-based literacy curriculum before MPS was required to by Act 20, and training staff in science of reading processes is the biggest bang for our buck MPS could do. Our district used money efficiently on something that will help both advanced kids and our neediest, and close loops on implementation. You can't ask for more than that, so stellar job, leadership, and board. This is important because every publicly funded district, charter, and voucher school will have to do what MPS is already doing. Yet Milwaukee is the only district that talked to the public this month about what it's currently doing and what it means for the future. We spent an hour and a half on this. That's incredible. And of our 13 biggest districts, only Milwaukee, Madison, Racine, and Janesville are already doing what will soon be required. Meanwhile, districts in our region have done the exact opposite, wasting money, time, and kids' precious years in school. So thank you, board, for putting one of the most important things on the agenda. So I just wanted to raise some questions, not produced yet in discussion. I'm going to just toss them at you. So how frequently do you drop into classrooms to make sure this is being used with fidelity? Could you publicly share the document detailing what principals and coaches are looking for when they observe classroom teaching? Can you speak a little bit more specifically on how it connects to native Spanish speakers and Hmong speakers? What results are you already seeing, good, bad, or neutral, among special needs students? You talked about that a little bit. What percentage of teachers, you mentioned count, what percentage of teachers have finished letters retraining, since 100% will have to finish it under the new law? Is the curriculum purchase freeing up time for teachers, or because so much is solved for them, or are they being overwhelmed? Are you troubleshooting the science of reading with those that are already doing it, like Madison Metropolitan, or even some of the choice schools in Milwaukee? If parents are not looped in yet into what's being done, can you provide materials to them to take home, or can you work where they're already going, boys and girls clubs, religious institutions, meet them where they already are to get them this training. Specifically, who is accountable for successful implementation and results? Not like everybody, but like specifically who's on the hook. And then lastly, because Milwaukee is one of the few districts statewide to do the science of reading, have staff be encouraged to sign up for the State Council on Early Literacy Curriculum, which will determine that for the rest of the state. Thank you for doing this for kids' sake. Appreciate it.
Madam Secretary, are there any online speakers?
Madam Chair, we have no additional requests for public testimony.
All right, is there any further question or discussion? Yep, Director Leonard.
So, a lot of good questions, and I know you had to say that very, very quickly, but I would like to have those so we can take a look at those to make sure that we all have the questions, okay?
Madam Secretary, is that
So
possible?
noted.
Okay, thank you. Director Gokul Gandhi.
Yeah, maybe you can email your school board representative with those questions so we can get that sent over to the Office of Board Governance.
All right, I see no other hands up for commentary. Thank you again for that comprehensive report, and agree, it was really nice to be able to set aside time at the SASE committee to really delve into reading these types of in-depth discussions about, specific areas of our curriculum are what really should be driving the SASE committee, and it's really nice that we were able to take time to do that this evening. So thank you, everybody who is here to present and participate. Thank you very much. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is item number 2, which is transmittal of and possible action on the Achievement Gap Reduction Program's end of semester report. This is an informational item, and although it has been noticed for possible action, no action is required.
Would administration please present this item?
Madam Chair and members of the committee, the item before you on this evening's agenda is a report on the Achievement Gap Reduction Program. To share this report, I have with me Allison Foyer, Supervisor of Early Childhood. Following her report, we'll be more than happy to entertain any questions that you may have. Ms. Foyer.
Good evening, Chair Simpson and other members of the committee. I am Allison Foyer, the Early Childhood Supervisor, and I am here to provide an end-of-the-year report on the Achievement Gap Reduction Program. As such, this update is a contractual requirement mandated by the Department of Public Instruction for the AGR program. The goal of the Achievement Gap Reduction Program is to improve the academic outcomes for the neediest learners within 5-year-old kindergarten through 3rd grade. The expectation is in alignment with and supportive of the district's first priority of success, increasing academic achievement and accountability. The Achievement Gap Reduction Program operates within 63 schools and 1 non-instrumentality charter school. The following are the demographics for this program. Currently, 10,596 students are enrolled, with 20.5% being English language learners, 21.9% receiving special education services, and 90.7% identified as economically disadvantaged. Overall, the majority of the students participating in AGR are either of Black or Hispanic descent. However, the program is diverse, with additional students reporting as American Indian, White, Asian, Hawaiian Pacific Isle, or 2 or more descents. This chart lists the 64 schools by region that participated in the AGR program for the 22-23 school year. The majority of the schools participating in the AGR program are located in the Central and Northwest regions. District-wide, the AGR program implements 2 strategies: class size reduction in K-5 and instructional coaching for all students participating in the program, K-5 through 3rd grade. This program abides by the belief that gaps will close when teachers have the instructional supports available, which empower them to create highly quality environments and responsive classrooms, which in turn should result in increased student achievement. Thus, it is through ambitious instruction district-wide focus that leaders, support staff, and teachers are provided a multi-level system of support in the areas of collaboration, balanced assessment, high-quality instruction, and culturally responsive practices within ELA and math. Both of these content areas are supported by the AGR office through multiple activities that support students as they work toward the proficiency of grade level content in ELA and math. As previously mentioned, the Achievement Gap Reduction Program requires the school board to review the implementation and progress toward achieving performance objectives at the end of every semester. For the purpose of this update, data from the standards-based report card was utilized. Because the school district does not uniformly assess K-5 through third grade elementary students using a progress monitoring tool such as STAR. The report card information allows for data gathering on children to be linked directly to standards being taught and provides a continual data point on student progress, since the goal is to increase proficiency by the end of the year. The following slide reflects an analysis of data comparing fiscal year 22 to fiscal year 23, standards-based report card grading for ELA, reading, and math content from trimester 3. This data is reflective of students in grades K-5 through 3rd enrolled in an AGR school. The data point provides a foundational basis for tracking progress towards proficient and advanced levels by the end of the school year. The following results were revealed. The data tables for English Language Arts reflect content standards addressing foundational skill development for reading and writing that includes language and speaking and listening, whereas math standards highlight math practices including counting, cardinality, and number operations. Trimester 3 results show that the percentage of AGR students with proficient and advanced scores stayed about the same in the areas of reading, ELA, and math. However, grade 1 improved slightly in all content areas. One supportive endeavor that has been the collective efforts provided by the Ambitious Instruction Initiative. It continually works on equipping teachers with more differentiation and scaffolding strategies, so instruction is more personalized and social-emotional considerations are enhanced. This has been accomplished through the various aligned professional development opportunities provided to school leaders, school support teachers, and instructional staff. The AGR office will continue to collaborate on the work in this area with curriculum instruction and research assessment and data. The AGR, excuse me. I think I'm off a little. The AGR office continues to provide educators, both teachers and coaches, with some direct service supports for Tier 1 in the following ways. Early childhood coaches provide Tier 1 support in the area of literacy, math, and SEL. Early childhood research support was made available via the Ambitious Instruction ebook. Finally, the 10 schools, with 9 of them being AGR, that use the Lexia Core 5 program with Fidelity has some promising results. The pre-K data shows that 99% of the students were working on grade level skills or above by the end of the year. None of the kindergarten students ended the year working below grade level skills, while 29% were working on skills above grade level. Overall, 10% of students in pre-K and K were working above grade level. One AGR school showed significant growth for pre-K and K students that met their usage minutes, with 96% of students completing above grade level skill work by the end of the year. The AGR office continues to support the district as it works to maintain a stronghold on the direction of the educational and operational path used to support the MPS community. In order to further anchor students and provide continuous learning, the AGR office worked on the following from February 2023 to the end of the school year with the following accomplishments. Submitted 64 strategy reports that allowed for continued funding for the program. Implemented the Lexia Core 5 reading program with 9 AGR schools. Lexia Core is a Tier 1 comprehensive technology-based literacy program that provides explicit, differentiated, systematic, personalized learning in the 6 areas of reading instruction: phonological awareness, phonics, structural analysis, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. Last year's results indicated a positive impact for those students that use the program with Fidelity, which is 20 to 80 minutes a week. The AGR office served on the Bridges to School Milwaukee Planning Committee by supporting the coordinator whose work connects the Milwaukee community and 3 MPS schools through a birth to 5 early learning linkage. Those schools are Browning, Westside, and Longfellow. The data indicates that there is still a need for structured support to ensure that the ambitious, high-leverage instructional strategies and interventions are being implemented with fidelity and rigor within the AGR classrooms. As such, the AGR office will continue to work with research, assessment, and data, as well as a content specialist from reading and math on how to better support teachers in this area. Additionally, the following action steps will be taken by the AGR program for the upcoming school year. Continue to increase coaching and support within AGR schools for fiscal year '24 with the onboarding of early childhood coaches in literacy and mathematics. Focus on foundational skill improvements in pre-K and K with the continued implementation of the Lexia Core 5 program in 9 AGR schools. We will continue to support the rollout and implementation of the Bridges to School Milwaukee project activities and continue embedding early childhood information within the Ambitious Instruction Accelerating Learning Plan. This concludes the AGR update. Thank you.
Thank you. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? Director Leonard.
And this may be inferred in there already, but I would be curious if we are looking at the longitudinal progress of those students that are in the Lexia Core 5, those 10 schools with those students, just to see what happens when they get to the next grades, just to see how much of an impact that is. Because that 79% looks great, but I'm hoping that's going to carry over.
Administration?
Yeah, so excuse me, Chair Simpson, I'm Allison Foy, Early Childhood Supervisor. The longitudinal progress, so this LexiCore is brand new, so we haven't had it long enough, but yeah, that is something that we would continue with the same schools that are using the program now. Considering also, we may want to take into consideration which students are staying at that school so that we are not looking at the mobility. But that is something that we intend to do in the future.
Any follow-up? All right. All right, Madam Secretary, I know that we have one member of the public who wishes to speak. Could I please have Teresa Fullerone come to the mic?
Hi. My name is Teresa Folleron, T-E-R-I-S-A-F-O-L-A-R-O-N, and all of you know me. What I'm about to say is not confidential because you can find this information open source on the internet. I'm an MPS employee, a public school education equity advocate. I work in the Office of Human Resources with MPSU, and I am one of many, many, many whistleblowers that work in MPS. I do not think it's hyperbole to say that the majority of the state complaints filed against MPS have to do in some shape or form with student achievement because we work for MPS. MPS exists to educate and protect students. Yet it appears to me that instead of the MPS board embracing those who have clearly identified, proven, factual, data issues related to student achievement.
But you're bringing up other topics that aren't related to the ambitious or to the.
This is related to the student achievement and the gap, and so I'm talking about ways to address it.
So if you stick to AGR and,
I am.
and not
Student
bring
achievement,
up
thank you
other
very
items,
much,
then
Director
that's
Simpson.
perfectly fine.
Yes. So I've heard from board members that the district problems they encounter were problems that existed before they arrived. So think about this data from AGR and the student achievement data. As if saying that it was there before you arrived, that it relieves you of responsibility. Imagine a firefighter arriving at a fire and saying, sorry, but this fire was here before I got here.
I'm sorry, you're not really speaking to the topic at hand.
Right, I can finish some sentences. It may help to provide some context. So, Like firefighters, it is your responsibility to put the fires out. 2, look for data, to ask for data, which is some of what we saw happening here with AGR, which was finally asked for. Data is crucial in informing your instructional practices. We ask for teachers to do it, and we want to make sure that our board is doing it. It is my belief that you will soon be rewarding the superintendent with a renewed contract. I'm curious to how much money the board will be providing the superintendent as a reward for poor student achievement.
I'm going to ask Madam Secretary to just cut the mic at this point.
I will provide.
Thank you so much. Madam Secretary, do we have any online members of the public who wish to speak?
Madam Chair, we have no additional requests for public testimony.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any further members of the committee who would like to speak? All right, seeing no hands, thank you very much for that update. I appreciate it. And Madam Secretary, what is the next item on our agenda?
Madam Chair, that was the last item on this meeting's agenda.
Thank you very much. There being no further business before the committee, this meeting is adjourned.